After an eternity of trying to overcome my creative blocks, I finally had a base sketch for my map in my hands, and it was finally time to bring it to life. This drawing had already been reviewed by my mentor and my classmates, and I had the green light to get into Unreal Engine and build to my level, so nothing could go wrong, or could it? Hi there, I'm Paola, 3D Environment Artist in Training. Welcome back to this section, where I share with you a little bit of my adventure creating my first playable map from scratch. In the last video, we talked a bit about the idea and creation of concept art. So this time I'm going to tell you what the process of turning this into this was like, as well as some lessons learned that have guided me in the process of figuring out how to build the foundation of a 3D environment. So bring your favorite drink or snack and get comfortable, cause the journey continues now. Remember that what you will see in this video is nothing more than me sharing with you my own learning process to become a 3D environment artist, as well as my own experience following Thiago Klafke's Environment Art Mastery course. Therefore, this content is not intended to be a step-by-step tutorial or to replace in any way the original course. So, if you want to learn everything you need to be an environment artist, you'll want to take a look at his course and his website. You'll find the links in the little info box below. Just as buildings need a solid foundation to stand on, so do video game maps, and the level design block is just that. This stage is all about building the simplest version of the environment, representing the most general figures of the level from geometric primitives with neutral colors, trying to keep details to a minimum and focusing on scale, composition, playability, and overall visual legibility. I must tell you that although I was dying to build my level, I first had to take a couple of weeks to familiarize myself with the interface and basic tools of the software, as well as spend some time building some random levels as practice. Once I felt confident enough to start building the level, I placed my drawing where I could see it, brought in the reference guy, whose mission is to help us maintain the scale in the environment. And sooner rather than later, I realized that although I had imagined what I would like the map to look like from the top view, and was building the houses similar to those in my references, from the player's perspective it didn't look good at all. After sharing the level during one of the monthly course calls, my mentor Thiago commented that although the initial part had a very interesting composition, the rest was getting a bit monotonous in some parts, as it followed a linear construction, and pointed out that while the concept art is the starting point, it can be as flexible or rigid as I decide, and that it was up to me to follow it faithfully or deviate from it as much as I wanted. Since it didn't work, and since he also warned me that including this area would take a lot of work, time and effort to get it right, I went with the second option. Lesson learned number 1. The design blockout is the right time to experiment to the fullest and make all changes, even abrupt ones, to improve the environment. Remember that it will always be easier to replace now what is definitely not working than to try to forcefully make it work at a later stage. I took the change that same call to clear up my doubts about the modular approach, learning that what for so long was an enigma to me was simpler than I had thought, cause it is about building the environment from small pieces, designed to be repeated and combined in such a way as to create structures of greater complexity and unique aspects. And yeah, just like the kit I was using to do it. Modules can range from buildings, levels of buildings, even segments of walls or roads. With that in mind, I started again, but this time I decided that to my list of priorities I had to add modularity. So, on one side of the map, I started building simplified versions of the houses I was going to include, making sure they looked different from the front and back, so that when I placed them in different rotations they will have a unique look. Lesson learned number 2. Designing and creating from this stage the modules with which the whole map will be built allows you to focus even more on composition and playability. Also, having them in a secluded space saves time when placing and distributing them in the level. Considering that my environment wasn't working, I decided to take a closer look at my references. And I also wandered a bit through some Overwatch maps, even my mentor's project. All of this in order to identify those details that create the feeling that the environment is about a real place. And I'm not talking about the little stories told with props. I'm talking about something that, being so abstract, often goes unnoticed when we walk through a place, such as the distribution and location of the architecture, according to sidewalks, roads, plants, stairs, ramps. Lesson learned number 3. The variations in the heights of the terrain, the different shapes, size and orientations of the buildings, the hidden alleys waiting to be explored, and imagining what a house looks like beyond the facade are details that bring realism and verisimilitude to an outdoor environment. With everything I had learned so far, I decided to forget a bit about the sketch I had until then and start building the prototype of my level with the houses I had created, focusing on how I expected it to be explored and how the player's perspective was. Following that strategy and remembering some basic composition principles such as the law of thirds, the golden ratio, diagonal reading, and even the laws of Gestalt for visual perception, I decided the location of each house and added additional elements such as wall segments or arches to create some different spaces. I must tell you that this process not only took me about 3 months, 2 feedbacks from my mentor, and I don't know, maybe 15 new gray hairs, but also it filled me with frustration every day of those months. I mean, I was building entire streets only to at the end realize that I was making a linear map again. So I had to scrap everything and start over, again and again and again. There were days when I didn't even want to touch the project at all, and I was starting to think if I was really made for it. It was the second stage and I was already giving up. Can you imagine? I could keep my environment as boring and simple as it was turning out to be, to move on to the next stage of development. But I couldn't accept that my mind was so square and unimaginative. So I was determined to keep trying relentlessly. But then, my grandpa passed away. So, to be honest, my brain was a mess and nothing seemed to make sense of my life anymore. So I decided the best thing to do was to forget about everything for a while. Lesson learned number 4. It is more difficult to get good results when working in a hurry, overwhelmed by life, or out of desperation. Taking a shower or a nap, or even a long break from your routine, is often a good strategy to clear your mind and reset your motivation. A couple of weeks later, I got back to work on my environment with a clearer mind, and everything flowed naturally this time. Of course, there were areas where I had to work a little more, but in the end, the final result exceeded my expectations. And according to the feedback from the community of the course, the composition was harmonious and my blockout was solid enough to move on to the next step, the art blockout, where the basic shapes we have created will be replaced by the basic architecture model in 𝒊𝒏𝒅. So, let's see what did I learn this time. The creative process is anything but static. Experimenting to the fullest at this stage and making significant changes now will be easier than doing so at later stages. Thinking early on about the pieces needed to build the level will help you save time, focus on composition and playability, and basically prevent you from getting overwhelmed later on. Thinking about how to limit the number of unique elements to model and texture. Looking closely at the synergy of elements in the real world, as well as reading a bit about architecture, urban planning, or even interior design, can help you increase the sense of verisimilitude of the environment. Good art is rarely the result of rushing, stress, or desperation. While deadlines are necessary to avoid stagnation and to move forward in development, excessive pressure can significantly and negatively affect not only the project itself, but both mental and physical health. Take your time to take care of yourself, and then you can create amazing art. The environment is like a puzzle, and the modules are nothing more than the small pieces that fit together to build it. So, modular thinking is just a way to optimize the environment for games, designing small pieces that can be used in different ways to create structures of greater complexity and bring the environment to life. Showing your work to others and receiving feedback from different people is a very powerful tool to improve as an artist. In my case, throughout the process, I wanted to hear feedback from artists in the industry, experienced players, and the general public. To that end, I often share my work with my mentor and the course community, my video game addicted friends, even my parents and my family. And well, recently here with you guys. I would really like you to join me in the next video of this series, where I'll tell you everything I learned while modeling the first version of my architecture and building the art blockout, which I would like to say was a very easy process and without any frustration. But no. Remember that if you want, you can take a look at my social media where I usually post updates and you can't be aware of the current status of the project. Tell me in the comments section a little bit about yourself, your next amazing project, or your opinion about the video or my environment. I'll be happy to read it. Thanks for sharing your time with me today. Hope to see you soon.